All right. Hey, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Ellis. This is Stupid Marketing Tweets, a podcast where we point out bad ideas that undermine the reality of marketing and perpetuate an echo chamber.
Let's take a look at this week's stupid marketing tweet where we snark on the tweet and not the tweeter. And we try to figure out why it's succeeding. So, this week, Ellis, you brought one that's actually related to one we had in our backlog. So, let's talk through those.
Okay, so the first tweet, which I brought today, reads, I spent 2.5 years focusing on features for my startup. Only averaged $300 per month. Agonized face. Then I started doing marketing, and in 3 months reached $1,000. Mind blown emoji. Marketing was scary at first, but now I don't look back. Running man emoji. So would you like to move to the second tweet, or would you like to dissect this first one?
Let's dissect it. Why do you think it's stupid?
Well, the whole idea of then I started doing marketing, as if marketing is just like a linear process that you go through, and then it works.
Yeah, you just put the thing in the marketing machine. You know, you click yes, I want to market this, and then you're good.
Right. And yes, marketing does work. I commend this person for the speed at which they 3.3x'd their revenue, or if that math is correct. But it's just the notion of, then I started doing marketing. Well, what did he do? Did he just start running some social media ads? Because that one could argue is advertising, not marketing. And it was scary at first. Tell me a little bit more about that. And you don't look back to not marketing. I feel like there's a lot that he could explain. I think this person is very well intentioned, which is why we snark the tweet, not the tweeter. But just the notion of marketing. Sparkles.
And frankly, that's a difficulty we have in our line of business. It does seem like clients want to believe marketing is a switch that you turn on, or it's a magical process like, oh, we weren't doing marketing, that's why our thing was failing. And in fact, there's a whole constellation of reasons why something wasn't working. We have clients that we meet with that it's very clear they're just not even aligned internally. Now, if you're like a startup, a 1 or 3 person startup, sure, marketing is something that it's hard to find the time and money to do because you're bootstrapping or you're trying to figure out how to make this thing work. But when it's a group of 10 to 20 people, man, there are so many other challenges, and it doesn't grow linearly. It's exponential growth, in terms of how many problems you can be encountering as a small business.
Yep. And you might be doing marketing or what you think is marketing, but that doesn't mean that it's good marketing.
Yeah, so why don't you share a little bit about how you differentiate marketing and advertising, and why do you think he might have meant advertising instead of marketing?
Well, I definitely didn't come prepared to do an entire thesis on marketing versus advertising, so I just want to give a caveat to our 2 listeners out there that I am open to being wrong, and also completely open for debate. At me on Twitter. The reason I sort of inferred that maybe his marketing was social media advertising is that's something that's it's like a discrete thing. It's very easy. It's very measurable. You allocate a certain number of dollars. It's kind of like gambling, right? If you're not a gambling addict, right? You allocate a certain number of dollars to your slot machine, and when you go through it, that's it, and whatever results you get are the results you get. So I feel like that is not necessarily marketing. Marketing involves a strategy, but it also involves some really deep thought about what your key messages are, what you're trying to say, and who you're trying to reach. And of course, some social media ads, you really have to think about that because you have to, create your audience. But if you haven't given that kind of thought and even some testing to those thoughts, you're basically it's the spray and pray, right? And it's not that that's wrong, and clearly something has worked for him, and I don't know what he did. But I think that social media ads are sometimes the easiest place to start without having to really do the long, sometimes painful work of creating key messaging and a marketing strategy based around that.
Yeah, that's such a key insight. In fact, it made me think of this this video that I watched recently by a guy named Dave Trott, who's really a marketing and advertising genius with decades of experience. He's in the UK. And in this video, he said, marketing isn't advertising. Marketing is about selling. Advertising is the voice of marketing. Marketing's job is to get it right. Advertising's job is to get it heard.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And without any good like marketing strategy behind your advertising, it's just, I mean, it's kind of the slot machine.
Yeah, and even then, marketing and advertising are, I mean, I call them a switch to just flip on, but it's far, far longer than that. I mean, it's almost like pushing a boulder uphill. It's not a quick fix. You can't just
Sisyphusian.
Exactly. It's not Sisyphusian. You can't just say, I'm going to start marketing. And obviously, this is just a tweet. This guy's not trying to tell you his whole life story. But to say, I started marketing is one of those things that when the Twitter engine picks it up and blows up the tweet, it can create this false narrative. And that's really what this whole podcast is about. Like, let's dispel some false narratives. So
Yes.
the other tweet, and I'm not faulting him for A/B testing or anything like that, but another tweet about a month prior, he said, it's almost word for word the same, but with different twists on it. I spent 2.5 years working on my startup without doing marketing. It made me so happy to polish the product every day. But after a while, sorry.
I'm doing the emoji.
What is that emoji called?
It's like the hug or like the hands emoji. I don't know.
But after a while, not making money removed all the joy. What's the emoji?
I don't know. He's like
Sweating, crying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I stopped building and started marketing. Sales took off and I started feeling happy again.
Rocket emoji.
Rocket emoji. So this is another thing where you're talking about working in the business versus working on the business. And I think a lot of business owners, especially if they are developer founded, like a developer is the CEO and owns all the IP and is building the product and all that stuff. It's so easy to get caught up in the meaningless details that don't build your business. No one will buy your product because the corners are perfectly rounded on the rectangles on the screen. You know, it's not about this kind of like fit and finish, polishing your product. It's really about providing value to the market.
And I know we had a client say to us the other day, like, well, shouldn't the product stand for itself? And in
No.
my head, I was like, no, no, it should not. It's always good to have a strong product, but if you have no one, just like this guy has realized, if you have no one who hears about it, it doesn't matter how good your product is. I mean, and for me with this second tweet, the biggest like issue I have is tying the happiness to the sales, which, you know, I get, we're business owners. We go on that cyclical cycle, and when things are low, it's hard to, you know, always have faith that they'll get better again. But yeah, that's kind of where, I don't know, it's hard because I really recognize that sentiment, and I have a hard time tying marketing and sales to like happiness.
That's a great point to end on. Thank you very much, Ellis, for that brilliant analysis.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, but you're welcome.
No, seriously, I think it's a really poignant point to end on. So, yeah, thanks for listening. And if you want to learn more about what Ellis and I do, you can just go to edifycontent.com and you can follow us on Twitter. And feel free to reach out about this episode. Use the hashtag #StupidMarketingTweets.
And send us your emojis.